Hello guys, welcome back to mathematics. Today we are going to check how to convert between decimals, fractions, and percentages. Before we start, I want to remind you that you can schedule your lessons with me if you want. You just need to go in the link that I leave you in the description. It's going to give you a link for a forms where you fill some information about what you need, and then I'll get back to you by email. Okay, let's start. So I decided to do this video from the easiest case to the hardest one, in my opinion. If you check the description, you are also gonna check what is the time that I explain each of these, just in case you want just to jump and go to the explanation that you are interested on. So let's start with the first case, decimal to percentage. So I consider this one of the easiest one because it's just moving the decimal point. Let's say you have the decimal 0.23. All you need to do is to multiply this number by 100. That means moving the decimal point two places to the right. So you are going to get 23. So 23%. 0.23 is equivalent to 23%. In this case, you also need to move it twice. But since you have just one decimal here, you need to fill with a zero. So in this case, zero point 0.7 is equivalent to 70%. Let's check this case. Still, you need to move the decimal two places, so it's gonna be here between the 3 and 4. That means you are going to get the 3.4%. In this case, again, we need to fill with a zero. So we are going to be able to move the decimal point two places. So 80%. And I put this one so you're going to see the difference between the zero between the point and the eighth, like in this case. So you move the decimal point twice, and at the end the point would be on the right of the eighth. So it would be just 8%. So notice how different zero point 0.8 and 0.08 are. Let's see what happens when we don't have 0 point something, but we actually have a 1. We still move the decimal point two places, so we need a 0 to fill the space. So it's going to be 140%. And that makes sense because it's 1.4, so it has to be more than a whole. And the whole is 100%. So then the percentage should be bigger than 100%. That is 140%. And finally, this one. It's similar, but in this case, we don't need to fill with zeros. We just leave the 156%. Always remember that the whole thing is the 100%. If you take the complete whole, the complete group of people, the complete pizza, we are talking about 100%. Or 1 if we are talking about decimal numbers. The second case is to convert the percentage to decimal. So it's the opposite of the previous one. So yes, we are going to keep moving the decimal point, just that in this case, we would move it to the left. So in this 13, it's like the decimal point is at the end because there's no decimal digits. So we would move it one and twice to the left. So it's going to be 0.13. So we fill with a 0, so we are going to write the number as 0.13. 25%, same thing, move the decimal point twice, and it's going to be 0.25. Again, we fill with a 0 to see it more natural, 0.25. Let's see what happens with this one, which is bigger than 100. So if we move the decimal point twice, it's going to be here between the 2 and the 5. So it's going to be 2.50. Remember the 0 on the right after the decimal point, it doesn't have any value, so we can just erase it and leave it as 2.5. Let's see if the percentage has just one digit. Since we need to move the decimal point two places, so we are going to need another 0 to complete the number. So it's going to be 0.06. It's very important. When you already converted into decimal, don't put the percentage because that would be wrong. That's a different number. You just need to leave it as 0.13 as a decimal. That is 13%. And notice here the difference with 60%. We put the decimal point here, it's going to give us a 0.6, the decimal point on the left of the 6. Finally, we could have also percentages given as a decimal. So we still move the decimal point two places. So it's going to be 0.345. And finally, the difference when it has just one in the holes. So 1 and 2. Again, we are going to need a 0 to complete the number. So 0.0345. Now this is a pretty small number, and 3.45 is also small. 3 out of 100. So 3 in the position of the hundredths. Okay, now let's convert a percentage into a fraction. Basically, the denominator is given. When you have a percentage, this percentage sign means out of 100. That's what it means. So when you talk about 25% of the people, it will be 25 out of each group of 100 people. That means we can express this as 25 out of 100. And what is that as a fraction? It's 25 out of 100. The fraction is done. The only thing is that we need to do some extra work here because usually we can simplify these fractions. In this case, we can divide by 5, top and bottom. We are going to get 5 over 20. It seems like we can divide by 5 again. Divided by 5 and divided by 5. Then 5 divided by 5 is 1 and 20 divided by 5 is 4. So 25% is the same thing as 1/4. That's how we convert it. So notice that to get here is pretty easy. The number over 100. And then we just need to simplify. Okay, so in this one we have 13%. So same thing. We just put the 13 and 100 as a denominator. 13, as you know, is a prime number, so we cannot simplify in this one. Okay, the next one, 250%. So 250 over 100. Again, we simplify. We can divide by 10. Divided by 10 is easy in this case because we can just cancel the zeros basically. That is going to give us 25 over 10. At this point, it's easy to realize that we can divide by 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5, 10 divided by 5 is 2. We cannot simplify anymore because they are both prime numbers. So the fraction is 5 over 2. Now this is an improper fraction because of course 250% is more than 100. So it has to be more than 1. Okay, for the next one is 6%. So 6 over 100. We can simplify dividing by 2. This is going to be 3 out of 50. And that's going to be the fraction. Let's see the difference with 60%. So in this case, it's going to be 60 over 100. Again, we could divide by 10 by canceling the zeros. That is going to give us 6 over 10. We divide by 2. And then we get 3 over 5. Remember that simplifying is using equivalent fractions. What happens if we have a decimal here? Let's see. That would mean 34.5 out of 100. The problem is that when we use fractions, we don't use decimals. So the solution is to use equivalent fractions again, but in this case we need to multiply. So we are going to convert the number at the top into a whole number. So when we multiply by 10, it's like moving the decimal point one place. 345 out of 1000. That would be the fraction. And then we can simplify this one. It's a little harder because we have big numbers, but yes, we are able to simplify. Can divide by 5. Okay, we cannot simplify anymore, so this would be the answer. And finally, this one, 3.45 over 100. So in this case, it's similar to the previous one. It's just that in this case, we would have to multiply by 100 because we need to move the decimal point twice. So times 100. Let's see, that would give us 345 over 100 times 100. Then we just add two more zeros and it would look like this. Again, we can simplify dividing by 5. Dividing by 5. That's going to give us again the 69 and here a 2000. And that would be the final fraction. Okay, now let's check how to convert the fraction to a percentage. That is the last case that we need to convert all the rational numbers. So the first case is when the denominator is a factor of 100. That means that there is a number that I could multiply by the denominator to get 100. The objective here is that the denominator becomes a 100, so we can convert right away into a percentage. In this case, 4 times 25 is 100. Remember, with equivalent fractions, the same operation that I do at the bottom, I need to do it at the top. So it's going to be 3 times 25, which is 75. Now that we have 75 out of 100, that means 75 out of 100, which is this symbol too, 75%. So we are already converted. I'm going to leave you here the multiplications that get you 100. So you are going to use it in this kind of conversions. So with those multiplications, you are going to be able to convert these kind of fractions. For example, this one, the denominator is 20, so we are going to use this one. 20 times 5, and same thing at the top, is going to give us 11 times 5 is 55, over 20 times 5 is 100. 55%. For this one, we are going to use the last one. 2 times 50 is 100. That means we need to multiply by 2. That is going to give us 126 over 100. Notice this one is an improper fraction, so it's normal that is going to give us a percentage that is bigger than 100. 126%. Finally, this one, we are going to use this other multiplication. So we multiply by 10, top and bottom. Remember, always both of them. 7 times 10 is 70, and 10 times 10 is 100. So this is already going to be 70%. Okay, guys, it's time for convert a fraction to percentage when we have any denominator that is not a factor of 100. So guys, this one is a little harder because you need to know how to divide decimal numbers. So that's why it becomes a little bit harder. Let's check it. So let's say in this one we have 6 over 24. So let's remember that a fraction is also a division. So this is the same as saying 6 divided by 24. But since 6 is smaller than 24, the division is 0, and we need to put a decimal point. Once we put a decimal point, we are allowed to keep going in the division by putting a 0 in the divisor. Now we can do how many times is 24 and 60. So 24 plus 24 is 48, plus 24 is going to be bigger than 60. So we are just going to be able to fit it twice. 2 times 24 is 48. We subtract and we get 12. Since we are already working in the decimals, we could keep going, putting zeros for the remainder and keep doing the division. So how many times is 24 in 120? Well, let's see. 24 plus 24 is 48, plus 24 is 72, plus 24 is 96, plus 24 is 120. Okay, so this was times 1, times 2, times 3, times 4, times 5. So that means we need to put a 5 here. 5 times 24, we already saw that is 120. So we just put it and do the subtraction. This is 0. That means that the fraction is equals to zero point 0.5. And we know that as a percentage is just going to be 25%. For this one, also notice that 6 over 24, we could simplify it, dividing by 6. That's going to give us 1 over 4. And then with the previous method, 4 times 25, we could have find that this is 25 over 100, which is just 25%. But sometimes we cannot do that, we cannot simplify, and the only option is to do the division. For example, 5 over 8. We cannot simplify this anymore. The only thing that we could do is the division. 5 divided by 8. So 5 divided by 8. Again, the 8 is too big, so it's 0 times. And then we are able to put the 0 to keep going with the division. 50 divided by 8 is 6. 6 times 8 is 48. So we do the subtraction, it's going to give us 2. We put a 0 and keep going. 8 in 20 is twice. 2 times 8 is 16. 20 minus 16 is 4. We put another 0 and keep going. 8 times 5 is 40. 40 minus 40 is 0. Sometimes you keep going and keep going and keep going and you never get the 0. So don't worry, you don't have to keep going forever. You just do it 2 or 3 times and report that number, okay? So this is going to be 0.625, which is, if we move the decimal point twice, 62.5%. And that's how we convert it into percentage. Okay, guys, this is your time to practice. Notice that each column has equivalent values. So that means you need to convert 0.25 to percentage and put it here. And convert it to fraction and put it here. And then you complete the whole table with the equivalences in the columns. Okay, you can pause the video and in a moment I'll give you the answers. Okay, guys, I'm going to write the answers. Notice that the fractions are already simplified, so you might have gotten something different. Check if you can simplify it and then check if it's the same as this one. In this one, you are getting always 6 forever. So if you put a 7 here, it's also good because that means you round it to the previous decimal. So 16.7, it's also correct. Okay, guys, I hope it was useful. Give me a like if it was. Don't forget to subscribe, book your own lessons with me, and drop any question you have in the comments below. Bye bye, guys. See you next time.